Okay, so hi everybody. I don't be taking nothing serious, but hey y'all, it's Seasons with Kimmy. We're blessed and highly favored here, and today we're gonna be talking about a lot of different things, but in particular, we're gonna be talking about like the significance of like stepping into like your purpose or like your talent and just growing as a whole. And then also I'm talking about why things changed the way that it did. Why aren't you cosplaying anymore? Like, I think I want to talk about this like publicly, like in video format, because typically I've talked about why I stopped cosplaying on Twitter or X, talked about it on Facebook, talked about it on TikTok and so on. But I think to kind of put a nail on the coffin, I guess, I want to talk about this on here, to get like a full synopsis of it. But aside from that, let's get started, shall we? So a lot of people may be wondering, like, what is going on? I think a good like scripture to start off with is Proverbs chapter 16 verses 18. Hold on, let me pull it up on my phone. Oh yeah. So I have been like focusing more on like my graphic design business and stuff, but I had designed like some custom like wallpapers and stuff. So I had this series that I pretty much did designs about pertaining to the fruits of the spirit, and I had did this. Wait, hold on. I had did that. I don't know if it caught it clearly or not, but I was super proud of that one. But that's besides the point. The thought randomly just came to my mind. Okay, yeah, it was Proverbs 18:16, not Proverbs 16:18. So, because I think Proverbs 16:18 basically says like an arrogant person, like essentially warning comes before destruction, but that wasn't the one. So it's Proverbs 16:18. Which says, a person's gift makes room for him and brings him before a great people. I wouldn't say stick a pin in it, but this particular scripture is going to be like the overall theme of the video. I'm going to talk about how growing up, I always liked, arts and graphics and so on. Like anything that had a flashy cover, whatever the case may be, that's what I liked. I loved it. It was my bread and butter, and I read encyclopedias. I was skimming through dictionaries trying to sound out words, looking at VHS covers and stuff like that. That was my bread and butter as a kid, and it just got to a point of where I was introduced to cosplay or whatnot, right? Because it was this show called Heroes of Cosplay with Yaya Han and a bunch of other cosplayers. And cosplay is literally just like you're just dressing up as like fictional characters. I kid you not. Whether it's like a comic book, video game, TV show, movie, like etc. That's all it is. You're dressing up as a fictional character. So my introduction was the show Heroes of Cosplay, where they would go behind the scenes and show you the blood, sweat, and tears that these cosplayers would spend making these costumes, like their struggles with EVA foam, Warbler, LED lights, like thousands of dollars worth of like costuming and everything. So the first convention that I ever went to, like a little after that, I went to my first convention, which was Geekonomicon, because at the time, me and some friends started a club at my school called the Anime Arts Video Games and Poetry Club, and I had tried to organize all the details to the best of my ability. So we made it to Geekonomicon, which is in Biloxi, Mississippi, and it was super fun. I saw like a lot of cool cosplayers and stuff. Like it was dope. It was cool. And my first cosplay was in May of 2015, which was a closet Harley Quinn. Like this is what it looked like somewhere on the screen. Right? So that basically was like what started it all for me. And geez, like it was just hook, line, and sinker from there. Like I liked having the ability to like express myself, because like not just with cosplay, but other things became, you know, a way of like expressing myself, such as writing, such as drawing, and other, you know, and other things and so on. However, from like 2016 and like 2019, from like 2016 to 2019, like I was chronically online. Baby, chronically wasn't even a word. Like I was going to like conventions and stuff. It was really fun, because like one convention I would go to like all the time, here and there, would be Anime Blues Con in Memphis, Tennessee. I went to Anime in Milwaukee. I went to, I'm trying to think. I wanted to go to Daisho Con, which is like in, I think, Wisconsin Dells, somewhere in Wisconsin, like in 2018, but I didn't really get the chance to. But I ended up going to Anime in Milwaukee, which is really cool. I went to the Mississippi Comic Con like maybe once. There's like so many different conventions that I wanted to go to, but I didn't really have the money to go. And on top of that, I was a college student. I was cosplaying while in college and having to deal with like a bunch of like weird spiritual dynamics, you know, pertaining to like family members, ex-friends, things of that nature. But anyways, so it gets to a point of where like I don't really have like a lot of friends to an extent, and I started making a lot of more, you know, cool friends and stuff in between the like 2017 to 2019 mark, like a lot of cool people. So next thing you know, 2020 to 2021 hits, and I start having like a lot of different mindsets about stuff. But then again, I was 22 or 23 years old. Why would you not have different mindsets at that age, in my opinion? So one of the things that kind of, you know, when I started making friends, that's when the cosplay drama and other stuff started coming in, that I started to notice, or that I started to peep, pertaining to like a lot of things. So the reason why I left, because it's like I would go deeper into the cosplay drama, but in order for me to go deeper into that, I gotta actually say my reasons for leaving first. So it gets to a point of where around the 2022-23 mark, that's when things start to take like a shift for me in my life. And I dip. I said, I'm out of here. Y'all not finna see me no more. Clock it. So I officially leave, I believe, in late 2022 or 2023. I believe it was late 2022, I think. So the first reason of why I left the cosplay community, cosplaying conventions are expensive. Like I'm just letting you know in advance, like closet cosplays it doesn't take a lot of money. It's just you going in your closet and just cooking something up, taking a picture and posting it on social media. Not that difficult, but crafting together a whole, you know, epoxy mold or EVA foam, Warbler, you know, a sword with LEDs, you know, and so on. That stuff costs money, like thousands of dollars. And a good chunk of people, sometimes they're not necessarily making money just off of like, you know, the costume, but really the cosplay prints and stuff like that as well. I wasn't, you know, me as a cosplayer, I wasn't really on the cosplay print type thing. I'm just like, bro, I'm just cosplaying. If I make friends off of it, cool. If I don't, it is what it is. I got a degree to get. This is just a hobby, right? And going to these conventions and stuff, hold on, my eye a little itchy. So, you know, going to these conventions and stuff, that stuff be adding up. Like those 3-day passes 1, 2, 3 day passes. That stuff adds up the more you go to like conventions and stuff. And then on top of that, you have to take into account, especially if you live out of town, you gotta look up, you know, the cost of the hotel for 3 or so days, you know, the travel, you know, including your flight or taking the Amtrak or whatever the case may be. And you gotta keep into account where, like you gotta keep into account of where it's like, okay, like am I gonna, the flight is here, the train is here, whatever the case may be, like how am I gonna get around the town? Is the convention right there? Or am I gonna have to get a rental car to drive 20 minutes, you know, into the city to get to the convention and stuff like that? All of these costs and stuff will range you anywhere from maybe like $1,000, sometimes like maybe in the hundreds to maybe like in the thousands, depending on what convention you're going to and how many conventions you're going to a year. That stuff gets expensive. And then on top of that, you have to add costuming to the mix, especially when you want it to be a really good, like you want it to be like a good cosplay too. That stuff costs money. And me being a broke college student that's having to navigate toxic dynamics, I had the money like that. I didn't even have a whip at the time. Like, nah. It was just too, I just said, nah. So the second reason was like the really huge negativity and odd spirituality within the cosplay community. So this is what I mean by like the cosplay drama. And I'm going to be explaining this from like a general aspect and a spiritual aspect because, you know, I'm just letting y'all know in advance, I am a Christian. And I'm not one of those Christians where I go to church on Sunday and I hoot and holler up a storm and I curse somebody out the next day and acting like I'm perfect. I'm the type of Christian where I will hold you and me accountable at the same time. And I will pray over you with love because I care about you. That's the type of person I am. Now, so what I mean is around the 2020 mark, I started making some friends and things were cool. And the next thing you know, it just felt like a lot of people were like, how do I put it? It's just like, it felt like people were using cosplay as a way to mask their actual problems. Like they were using cosplay to be the bullies that they never got to be in high school because they themselves were being bullied. It's like they turned into, it's like in a way, it's like they turned into the thing that they hated, which is kind of crazy. And there were situations and moments where people were making group chats to talk smack about other cosplayers in it, and this stuff was getting exposed left and right and so on. Because there was a situation where there was somebody that I used to be like friends with or whatnot, and I was in like, you know, I was in a group chat with them and some girlies that like, you know, that I was cool with. I'm still cool with like most of them, like the majority of them. Like I'm friends with like 4 of them to this day. Like they're the homies, like for real. So it's to a point of where there was a cosplayer in question that was like being discussed in the group chat, but it wasn't necessarily the cosplayer verbatim. The example, well, I guess this cosplayer was used as an example of what this friend was talking about pertaining to the prominent issue of colorism being in the cosplay community, aka people have a tendency to treat lighter cosplayers differently compared to dark skinned, you know, cosplayers. I'm at the mindset now where it's like, what God has blessed, no man can curse. It doesn't matter if you're lighter than me or darker than me. What God has for you is for you, and what God has for me is for me. And there's nothing you can do or that anybody can do to change that. But back then, I was, like I said, hook, line, sinker. That I, you know, was on that type of time. Like, I believed that 100%. Right? And it was at some points where they was doing a little bit of roasting or whatever, And admittedly, I was like, hey, I ain't gonna hold you, like, old girl, when she was dancing, it was a little awkward. At the same time, who am I to talk? I can't even dance. So I don't have no room to talk. At least she dancing. At least she, she's stepping into the plate. Meanwhile, I can't even dance. Like me now, would I have entertained that type of, talk? No. Like, if she dances awkward, so what? She's doing what she loves, and that's all that matters. And then I think at another point, I had said something about her glasses, because her sunglasses were like big, but at the same time, I'm just like, at the end of the day, the glasses were not ugly. The cosplay ate. Like, her face card did not decline. So that's just what it is. So, right? And then there was a girl in that particular group chat that came out and exposed said friend, about that whole situation. And that ended up getting, said friend flack. So it gets to a point where there's another situation where I'm added to another group chat. Because mind you, I do not like group chats. I literally left my family group chat. Like, that's how much I don't like group chats like that. Because not only do I not really pay attention to them as much, but at the same time, sometimes I kind of don't be caring about what's going on sometimes. So I typically try to stay out of, I try to be in as little group chats as possible. And I have to, like, at least try to have some kind of discernment about what they got going on in said group chat. Because just because I'm cool with you, it doesn't mean that I'm cool with what's going on in the group chat. That's the mindset that I have now. Like, point blank, period. So it gets to a point where there's a situation where I'm added to this new group chat in, I believe, August of 2020, 21, 22, one of those years. And I know the name of the exact group chat and everything. And I know the majority of the women that were in this group chat as well. So long story short, there's a situation where one of the cosplayers accused someone that I was really good friends with. I mean, I was friends with this person for like 6 years, and I know them personally as I met them through a mutual, and that mutual was my ex-boyfriend. So another cosplayer in this group basically, for whatever reason, used this situation to bash, my friend. And this is weird because this was around the time that this friend ended up having an article, pertaining to their cosplay in their city. And mind you, this cosplayer that was bashing my friend wasn't even from said city, which is the crazier part. So it's to a point of where I'm sitting there and I'm watching these women talk about her, and it's making me mad. I'm just like, I'm leaving. And admittedly, I'm screenshotting this and I'm going to tell her. And I literally, I said in the group chat, I said, hey, this cosplayer is my friend. I've been knowing them for some time and they're a lit cosplayer. And they ignored me saying that and went back to bashing her. And it just got to a point, I'm just like, yeah, I don't have time for this. Y'all are mad weird. And I'm out. I'm leaving. So I left and I went to one of my cosplay friends, and me and, this friend, I'm going to say friend 1, friend B. So friend A is the one that's being bashed in the group chat that I've known for years. Friend B is mutuals with friend A, right? So I'm talking to friend B about the situation, and I'm just like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, there's this situation that really made me mad. So I'm just venting to him about the situation. So then he gets, friend A on the phone, and I'm just like, okay. So we're all talking about the situation. I'm sharing the screenshots with friend A, and I'm like, hey, I don't like the fact that they sat and had the audacity to bash you and you didn't do anything wrong. All of this over a cosplay that has an afro, but at this point, that's been done to death, so that doesn't make any sense to be mad about. It's given the vibes of whenever cosplayers would wear similar costumes, or they may have the same idea, and one person is like, "Oh, you're a copycat. You're trying to be everything that you're trying to be. This, that, and the third, and you're copying me." And it's like, bro, I hate to break it to you, but sometimes some original thoughts that we have may not be as original as we think, because there's probably somewhere right now, there's somebody probably got the same idea as you right now as we're speaking. Yeah. Okay, so this situation happens, right? And I'm sitting, so back to the friend. Back to the friend that I kind of had like a little bit of like issues with, that added me in this group chat, in this August group chat to begin with. Right? So I'm telling this friend, hey, I don't appreciate the fact that you disrespected my friend in this group chat. You took the side of somebody that you barely knew over somebody that not only knows you, but someone that is telling you that they've known this friend personally for years. Like, respectfully, I'm not gonna trust somebody that I've known for like a few minutes, or that I know of on social media, over somebody that I've met. I know the type of personality that they have and so on. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, tit for tat, things happen, and then we end up having a falling out, and it is what it is. So next thing you know, there's like a lot of weird just stuff I notice as well, to the point of where this person went as far as to, so they try to come back and initiate the conversation from like 3.5 to like 4+ years later, whatever the case may be. And I'm kind of like, and internally I'm just like, this would have been understandable if like you confronted me about this the moment I said it, but the fact that you waited 3.5 to 4 years when so much has happened, and I already told you I don't want to be friends with you anymore, is like absolutely mind-boggling. And the spiritual aspect of this is that, and I know some people are going to be like, oh, she's crazy, but hear me out. So it was to a point where I had multiple dreams pertaining to this person, to the point of where they were trying to find out what I was up to and stuff like that. And internally, I'm just like, we're not friends. So why are you trying to find out what I'm doing? That's kind of creepy. And then something I noticed, like, is well spiritually pertaining to like the cosplay community, that I just didn't like, is that a lot of people had like the spirit of Jezebel. What I mean by the spirit of Jezebel is, I don't mean like, oh, she's saying we're trying to seduce people. No. The reason why Jezebel was as terrible as she was, it wasn't just because of seduction and all this other stuff. It was literally because of the fact that she was a very manipulative person, and she was willing to twist and warp whatever necessary to get her way. It didn't matter who she had to step on. Because, prime example, so there's a man named Naboth, and I'm gonna put it somewhere on the screen where you can actually read this for yourself. So Naboth had a vineyard. Real nice vineyard. King Ahab wanted this vineyard. Naboth said no. What did Jezebel do? Okay, so not only did Jezebel basically steal the vineyard from under Naboth, but she literally had Naboth killed, just so Ahab can have his vineyard. That's the type of person that she was. When Elijah was telling the truth about the tendencies that her and the prophets of Baal were on, she literally had the prophets that God used, she had them killed, all because they were telling the truth. Like, there's so many examples that I can pull up of people saying and doing out of pocket things and then hiding their hands as if they've never done it. Or and so on. Like, there's so many different situations where people will do things and they'll lie, and the person, they'll literally not like you and then make something up and then make these goofy cancellations, and then when they discover that, oh, this person is telling the truth, we kind of did this witch hunt for no reason, they don't apologize. They just think that not saying anything about it is cool. Like, I've literally seen this in real time. I have seen, like, it's just no type of discernment to the point of where, like, people were doing whole collabs with people and didn't even, try to think about, like, like, maybe, it would be nice to do a collab with this person because they're cool, their energy is really nice, stuff like that. Like, no. The energy was always, oh, if I collab with this person, I can get clout. Like, on some exploitation type stuff, or some, like, fake connection type stuff. And it was just to a point as well where, like, a good chunk of some of the people, like, for me personally, they were kind of into stuff that I wasn't into. Like, so, like, it was to a point of where some of the girlies were into witchcraft and Mommy Wada and Oshun and stuff like that. And me being a Christian, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna disrespect y'all or anything, but I'm not into that. I'm straight out. And it just got to a point of where over time I started to grow out of some of the environments that I was in and some of the friendships that I was in, long story short. So I started to grow out of a lot of these areas. So then it leads me to, like, reason number 3, which was me just focusing, on outside endeavors. Because, like, for the longest amount of time, I was, like, flip-flopping, like, in between whether or not I should continue to cosplay, or I should really consider focusing on, like, other stuff. Because, mind you, at the time, I was cosplaying, but it was the love of cosplay was still there, but I didn't really care to, like, cosplay like that anymore, because I was more focused on, like, content creating, or, me continuing to get, like, my bachelor's degree at the time, and me starting to, like, try to grow my graphic design business as well, and so on. So it's to a point of where I'm just sitting, and at this point I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So it's to a point of where I'm praying and I'm asking God, I'm like, hey, I'm not the most perfect person in the world, but, like, what do I do in this situation? Like, is this, like, what's going on here? And I just feel this nudge to let go of cosplay in order to focus on other endeavors. So that's exactly what I did. I made a whole little lengthy post, on some, like, yeah, I made a long lengthy post on, what day was that actually? Hold on. And yes, I'm going to the magical world of Facebook to find the post in particular that I made. Because at the time when I did make the post, it was really tough. It was really, really tough. I started to deactivate. I was, like, deactivating my pages, like, on and off. But it just got to a point where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I think this is, like, my final time. Like, this is reps. So I made the post on July 17th of 2022. And I basically said that I was glad that I made the decision to let go of cosplay. Because before this, I would say, like, in late June or June-ish, that's when I officially started to let go of cosplay to focus on my endeavors. So I'm going to read the post a little briefly. So I said, this is going to be mad long, but important, carry on. So I said, I'm glad that I made the decision to let go of cosplaying for social media and to start anew and focus on my graphic design career and the passion that I have for art. I'll always love cosplay, but I want to be honest about my experiences within the cosplay world. Before I say all this and people think I'm just yapping at the mouth, here's most of the full/closet cosplays I have done from my senior year of high school in 2015 to 2021 to support my point. And I cosplayed like 50 to 60 plus characters. Ooh, it was so many characters. Oh my gosh. So I'm gonna skip to the end, right? Well, near the end. So I said, over time, the cosplay community or world became a toxic space that I wanted no parts in it anymore, especially due to how depressing it was starting to become on social media. So for the sake of following my own dreams and wanting to keep the love for this hobby that I have alive, I removed every account I had. Plus, as much as people try to exclude themselves from the cosplay community, if you do a specific thing, you are a part of that community. That doesn't mean you're toxic. That just means the community that you're a part of is toxic. People don't want to acknowledge that because of how everybody wants to be different, instead of realizing that they're average at most, but average people can do extraordinary things. Will I cosplay again in the future? Absolutely. But I think I'm going to do it on my own terms without social media knowing too much. In fact, I think this account specifically will be the only account I use to post any cosplays in the future and so on. So there were a good chunk of people when I left the community. They seemed like they were a bit upset. Like, hold on. Yeah, it seemed as if like they were like super upset with me leaving. And internally, I'm just like, why are you upset? Right? Because I'm leaving, not because of what other people are saying. I'm leaving because I need to focus on my degree. I want to focus on my business. I want to focus on my YouTube channel. I want to focus on my degree. These three things. And then last but not least, I want to focus on properly healing from my issues so I don't have to use cosplay, as a escape from these things. Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, when you push cosplay to the side, reality is always going to be there in your face, and you have to acknowledge it whether you like it or not. So it just got to that point where I just felt more at peace doing that. And there were a good chunk of people that were very upset with me about that. And internally, I'm just like, why are you upset with me? You're still cosplaying. You're still doing what you got to do. I just choose not to do it. And at the same time, the skills and things that I did learn, that I did obtain through graphic design, I started using them in other endeavors. Because just because you stop doing something or a specific, skill or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that it's stagnant and it stays in that same space forever. Because you can use that skill in other areas. For example, like even King David, before he became king, he was a musician, he was a warrior. And the tools and the skills that he learned through this supported his calling as a king. As being a musician, music has the capability of soothing people and causing people to alleviate certain issues and to mediate certain issues and stuff as well. And then being a warrior, being a fighter, a soldier, requires you to come into the understanding that sometimes you can't, sometimes you got to duke it out. You gotta fight. You gotta fight about certain situations. You can't mediate your way out of certain situations. You have to fight it out sometimes. So all of these things that David learned helped him when he became king, when he first became king, or just in general, right? So it's kind of like the same vibes. And I'm the type of person where sometimes the hobbies that we have are actually correlated to the calling and purpose that's on our lives. So if you're called to be in public speaking, stuff like art helps you to express yourself properly, right? So it's kind of like that, long story short. And like when you're crafting and making props and so on, you have the capability of creating and producing things that will help you to express yourself further, right? So outside of that, I left. I was a lot more at peace. I was able to do a lot more and so on, right? So, geez Louise. Now we're going to be talking about like, what do I really think of cosplay now, that I left about 3 years later. So some people aren't necessarily going to like this. And some people are probably going to take this and be like, she thinks she knows all that. And she's not even a Christian for real. She just jumped into this for popularity. That type thing. Right? But here's the thing. So in my opinion, while cosplay sometimes can be cool, in my opinion, it's a physical form of maladaptive daydreaming. So maladaptive daydreaming is basically where you daydream a lot. And I don't mean like, 2 or 3 little minutes. I mean like these daydreams go on for like 3+ hours, because it's something that I still struggle with, but I also, I'm working on it. Like it was to a point of where I would daydream for like almost 2-3 hours. Hours would pass by and I didn't even realize how much I was daydreaming. So for me, remember that point when I said reality is going to be waiting on you whether you like it or not? That's what I mean. So with cosplay and video games and other aspects, people take their hobbies and they use it as a way to really escape from the wanes and mains of life. And that's not necessarily a problem. It becomes a problem when you make that particular interest an idol, or you make it an escape, like a constant escape from certain things. And that becomes very dangerous, because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, reality is reality. And sometimes, I wouldn't say everybody, but like people have the capability of changing their reality. Now, with certain things in life, you can't change at all whatsoever. But we can only change the things that we have control over. And it's like, reality doesn't have to be a scary thing, because even for me, when I decided in my heart that I wanted to really grow and be serious about my relationship with God, I started having more peace about reality, to the point of where, yeah, reality may suck right now, but at the end of the day, I'm not finna let that stress me out. I refuse to let a lot of things cause me to lose my sanity in the first place. Like, I'm gonna play my little video games, watch my little TV, and at the same time, I'm gonna tackle certain issues on the head when it's time to do it, right? So this is just my opinion, my perspective. I think that depending on what you dress as, it can possibly open the door, to some weird stuff spiritually, especially when you're out here dressing as demons and witches and warlocks and all types of stuff, and especially just characters that emulate dark energy, because I feel like energy has the ability to be carried, whether it's in real life or whether it's in fiction. That's just me. That's just my perspective personally, right? Because I'm not gonna hold you. If I was to cosplay now, I'm not dressing up in any of those things. That's just not me. And then also, I feel like it shouldn't be used as a sense of identity, because that's something that I noticed that a lot of people were doing that I just didn't care to do. Like, it's the same thing with anime, basketball, and other things. Like, it's not your identity. It's just what you like to do. But the problem is a good chunk of people in these spaces haven't healed from the issues that they're dealing with. And they seek external validation repeatedly from other cosplayers, photographers, and other people, instead of understanding that, yeah, I like the cosplay, but at the end of the day, the only person that can validate me is me. And if you're a Christian, God. Right? So I got to a point where I realized that in some aspects I was using social media and other things as external validation a little bit. So I think it was like one episode where, back when I used to have like a podcast pertaining to like, I forgot what, oh yeah, it was called Kimmy's Bizarre Adventure. It was just random, we were just talking about random stuff. And it was an episode where me and one of my homegirls, and this one girl that I used to be friends with, we were all doing cosplay episodes talking about our experiences in cosplay. And this friend basically said that, like, outside of cosplay, she doesn't really have a purpose or something like that. And at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but the statement did kind of make me raise eyebrows a little bit. But now that I'm older, that type of mindset becomes very problematic, because it shouldn't get to a point of where you base your whole life and your whole identity around a certain thing that you don't have a life outside of it, right? Like, even with me, for example, like I have a lot of interests, a lot of different interests, but at the same time, I don't base my identity in those hobbies. I base my identity in Christ. I base my identity within my faith. Right? And it gets to a point of where if you weren't basing your identity or your whole life around these things, around these hobbies and interests, people would treat you as if you just weren't doing it for the love of the game, or you weren't being for real about it. But meanwhile, these people that would bash other people for not being for real about it were literally using cosplay as a come up to be famous, aka trying to get that external validation because they don't know how to have internal validation. And that becomes very problematic. And it goes within, what I was talking about with the whole like maladaptive daydreaming, in the sense of like, hey, cosplay is cool, cosplay is fine. But if you use it to try to mask other issues that you have, as a form of an escape, when you take that costume off, them issues gonna be waiting for you right at the door. So you have no choice but to eventually fix these issues. So it's like, for me, based on how I see it, it's cool to have interest. Like, everybody has interest. Even in the Bible, the prophets and other people that God used as vessels had interest. At the same time, they didn't make these interests their entire lives. David didn't make playing the harp his entire life. I'm just saying, hey. As a matter of fact, I think by me letting go of cosplay the way that I did and eventually growing into my own, I think a part of the entire process kind of changed me as a person. And it like heavily reflected in what I'm doing now, as a content creator and so on, right? Because I think the problem that I was starting to have, or that I always had pertaining to cosplay and even other things, is that I was getting into these things, but once I started really asking myself as I got older, like, hey, what's the reason why I'm doing these things? And then I had a reason when I was younger. But when I got older, I'm like, okay, this was the reason in the past. But what am I doing it for now? What am I gaining from it now? What tools and skills am I learning from this now? And now that I want to leave, what tools can I take with me and apply it, to other areas? That's kind of the mindset that I started to have. So it's just like, at the end of the day, like, this isn't to knock on other people's parades or whatever the case may be. But when it comes down to it, sometimes in order for you to really gain and grow, sometimes you got to leave. Sometimes you got to leave certain areas that don't serve you anymore. Or, that season is over. But this was me just yapping. And at the end of the day, sometimes the interests that you have are correlated with the calling that's on your life. So, hey, I don't regret it. In fact, I would do it again if we're being completely, totally honest. Yeah, so would I personally do it again? Absolutely. I would do it over and over and over and over. I would experience it all again. Like, I don't really regret it, because at the end of the day, just like it says in Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for every single thing that happens in life. So, I'm content. I'm very content. And I'm happy. So, but, geez. But the takeaway from this that I want people to really understand and pour into themselves about is the reality that sometimes there's going to be moments where we do certain things and we like them, or we used to like them, and we may hesitate on fully leaving something alone because the love for it is starting to fade out. And I would say just pray and meditate on it and really ask yourself, like, okay, what am I doing this for? You know, what are the pros and cons pertaining to this thing? You know, and if I decide to leave, what lessons can I take from this, and what tools and skills have I learned from this, and can I apply to other areas? Because when I left cosplay, I was sitting and thinking here and there, like, okay, what skills, you know, from this can I take and apply to other creative areas? Whether it's graphic design, whether it's crafting other things. And as a result, I ended up making Kay's caps. I'm not really as consistent with it, but I'm trying to grow it. Where instead of making costumes, I'm just making graduation caps, like custom graduation caps and so on, right? And on top of that, just like I would take like pictures and stuff for like cosplay, I started to dibble and dabble a little bit more into like photography and video and so on as well, right? So that's what I mean. Because sometimes, and like I said, this is just me, sometimes the things that we're interested in, God is calling us to evolve past that. And sometimes it involves letting go of things. And it feels difficult to let go of those things, but it's essential in order for you to grow, to get to where you need to go or want to be. But aside from that, I thank you guys so much for listening to me yap. But aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye guys.